Hi, everybody. This is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto, filling our pockets with crypto profits. I have with me Greg Osuri, who is the CEO of Akash Network. We're going to be finding out all about Akash Network. This is one of the projects that's on the new Osmosis DEX, Osmosis Zone, which is just a beautiful, beautiful automated market maker DEX, part of the Cosmos ecosystem. So we're going to find out all about that. To find the best cryptocurrency investments, check out Token Metrics. Use my affiliate link for a discount. Safety and security notice. Please watch out for comments like this by scammers pretending to be me or other crypto YouTubers. Also, please follow me on bittube.video. You can also follow me on Odyssey. These are both censorship-resistant platforms, and every now and then I am going to post a video which isn't going to be on YouTube. Find me on these platforms. Hey, Greg, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Thanks, Rich. Super Crypto Rich. Super excited to be here.
Yes, you can just call me Rich. So, Greg, you're the CEO and founder or co-founder of Akash Network?
Yes, CEO founder for Overclock Labs, which created Akash Network. So, I founded the company that built Akash Network about 5 years ago, and it's been a crazy journey. And Akash right now is one of the fastest growing decentralized cloud networks in the world. In fact, one of the fastest growing cloud networks in the world, period, right? So I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, so decentralized cloud network using the blockchain.
Yes. So to really simplify, if you think about the current state of the world, right? Most of your data is essentially sitting on the cloud. What that means is it's a computer sitting somewhere in a gigantic machine called data centers that's storing and processing your data, right? So you can have the freedom to not be physically constrained to a single computer, but rather, move around with the comfort of your data being available at your fingertips. So that is made possible because your data sits on the cloud. And the makeup of this cloud today is essentially an oligopoly of 4 or 5 companies, right? We're talking about 4 companies gaining over 80% of market share: Microsoft, Alibaba, Google, and Amazon Web Services, right? So these are gigantic corporations that, to give you a context, Amazon itself is a few trillions of dollars in value. And Amazon Web Services, which is the cloud arm of Amazon, is valued independently at $500 billion. So that just gives you a kind of...
So just because I know Amazon's really big, but you're saying just the cloud storage solution that Amazon offer is $500 billion.
Cloud computing, not storage alone. That includes storage and several other services. Yes, it is independently valued at $500 billion. We're talking about the most profitable unit of Amazon is cloud, and Amazon is not known for the profits. They're known for playing the margin game, right? But Amazon Web Services essentially feeds the rest of the company.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why I, as an individual, would use something like Google Drive, because then I can log into Google through here, access my emails and whatever documents I've stored. Then I go somewhere else, and I don't need to carry a power pack or have a really heavy, large computer with everything stored. I can then connect. But for what use would a company want something like a cloud storage solution?
Right. So if you
computer services,
cloud computing. So if you look at so it gets a little confusing because you see Google to store your data, your files and whatnot, Google Drive, and then there is Google Cloud Computing, right, which is actually a separate unit of Google, right? So Google Cloud Computing unit serves companies like Apple, or any company that want to build a cloud solution like Adobe, for example, if you do video editing, right? So you store your files on an Adobe cloud, but that Adobe cloud is actually run on Google. So it's one step abstracted away from the actual consumer for the most part. Consumer ultimately foots the bill because you're paying for iCloud services, how much ever, $20 a year or a month. That's actually going to Google to store your data. Even though Google and Apple are competitors, Apple has really no choice other than to use Google servers because that's how the cloud is set up, right? So, like I said, 4 companies control 80% of the market share. And there's really no way to break this oligopoly except to take a route which is which those four companies can't even fathom taking, which is decentralization and open source. So we're taking a unique angle in which Akash Network, a decentralized cloud network that doesn't host any servers, but rather taps into unused cloud capacity. So it turns out 85% to 90% of data centers in the world are not used or underutilized. While there's this crazy demand for the cloud, there's also this crazy supply that's not touching the market. So we brought that supply in a decentralized way where any company with data center can effectively become a cloud provider on Akash and make that available in a way that's easily consumable for developers and in an open, permissionless, and self-sovereign way. The result is the cost advantage you get on Akash is about 1/3 than Amazon. So if you're paying $1 on Amazon, you pay 30 cents on Akash. That's just a pure free market at its best.
Okay, so let me get this clearly, right? So we take Amazon Web Services. They have a whole bunch of computers, data centers, really, really big, powerful data centers, and they control what goes in and out, and the computing solutions that they then offer to corporations and other companies and stuff like that, and other organizations. And so it's centralized because they control it. And what you offer is a decentralized version where you tap into data centers all over the world, or they connect with you to give you their spare capacity.
Exactly. It's alarming how much of unused compute out there exists. Like, for example, why that's the case is because when you have a data center, you always need to have peak capacity. And you hit peak capacity maybe a day in a year, or maybe a few weeks in a year, right? Give you an example. If you're something like Intuit, which does TurboTax, in the US, tax season is 3 months. So people are busy in that tax season, and the utilization is probably about 95% or so. Off tax season, it's like 1% to 2%. So off tax season, what are you doing with this compute? You got to pay for it no matter what, because you got to cool these devices, and the biggest cost for a data center is electricity that goes for cooling, right? Anyway, bottom line is you pay for them or you lose them. So it's one of those things. So during which you might as well make some money and recover some of your costs, right? And the big selling point for the cloud today, I'm talking about the big cloud, Amazon and Google's, is you don't have to own a data center, but rather use this on a on-demand basis, right? Because owning a data center is not the cheapest thing. You gotta, there's inefficiency problems like underutilization and whatnot. So what we are doing is we are keeping the sovereignty for these companies to still have cloud, like Apple can have its own data centers and still be able to be effective when it comes to cost by selling that unused capacity on an open market. So Apple doesn't have to use Google because they have really no choice right now.
Right. Okay. Well, how do you find these data centers, and how do they find you?
They find us more than we find them, surprisingly. Right now, we have two traditional business development activities, we would call them. Fortunately, our conversion rate with data centers, I would say, is about 95% or so. Like 95% of the data centers we speak to all acknowledge that they have a problem, are willing to offer their compute. So that's why we have a lot more supply than demand. And that's hence the price point is significantly lower than what the market offers, right? So it's a no-brainer for data centers because it's a rampant problem. And I'm not the only one that talks about it. This is so many other solutions that are actually talking about it. But we are one of those solutions that have a viable way to solve this problem, right? So the harder part is the demand side, which is also actually growing pretty quickly. But we don't. There's so much compute out there. Some of the most lucrative compute on Akash is companies like Equinix, right? So Equinix is the largest interconnected data center network in the world. In fact, they provide data centers for Amazon. So if you were to transfer data from one data center to another data center on Amazon, you go through Equinix servers. So Equinix happens to be the biggest supplier to Akash. We're essentially going directly to the source, and cutting the middleman out, and hence the cost advantage, which is ultimately passed down to the user.
Okay. All right.
So, and we have other data centers now. And what's crazy about Akash is you get data centers that are exotic and usually unavailable to developers easily, right? So the way you would think Akash, the best analogy I would give you is Akash is Airbnb for servers, whereas Amazon is like Hilton, right? Just like Airbnb, you can get a single room, shack or a 10-person villa. Depends, and there's so much variety of choices. Then you can mix and match whatever you want. But if you go to Hilton, you get same standard service, same consistent, bed sheets and breakfast, and essentially the same consistency that one would expect from Hilton, and that's great. And that's, you have people that love the consistency. But if you want variety, if you want exotic options, you go to Airbnb. And similarly, in Akash, you get access to like data centers near cell towers, data centers near renewable energy, sources. So your electricity is super cheap. Data centers that provide data centers to Amazon, right? So you get all these amazing availability that you never really had before. So Akash's moat is not really, well, cost is great, but the real moat is the availability and access to these data centers, which was very traditionally hard for any developer to get access to.
Right. Okay. And now, what do the data centers do? What do they get out of it? Okay, they get to use a spare capacity, but how they, they're not charities. They've got to be earning.
They're making money, right? They're making literally money by selling compute. The way it works really today is if you're a developer and if you want to deploy something, you define what you want to deploy and specify how much you're willing to pay for this deployment. Say you have a website and you're willing to pay like $10 a month, right? You say that, and you put that on Akash Network. On the order, put an order on Akash Network, and there's a reverse auction that happens where providers are bidding for your workload. And usually you choose, ideally, a provider that offers you the lowest cost, matches all your criteria. You choose and you deploy. And as you and you deposit your AKT tokens, and these AKT tokens get transferred to the provider's account in a periodical manner. And so provider earns income by providing their services.
Okay.
On Akash Network.
But you're talking about legacy businesses that aren't necessarily familiar with cryptocurrency. So they're earning these made up money tokens. Mm-hmm. So what do they do with them? What sort of, there must be some
of them, yeah. So AKT is very, very high demand right now. Again, this is not financial advice. The reason we have high demand for AKT is it has incredible staking rewards. The economy is designed to reward early adopters of Akash Network very well compared to the adopters that come later on. And the staking rewards are north of 50% or so. So providers love these tokens because they can stake and earn 50% more revenue for what they're offering. And on top of that, there are newer rewards like Osmosis LP rewards now, which are 300, 400%, it changes every day, but it's very lucrative, right? So there's a lot of demand for Akash tokens because if it's additional productive capabilities such as earning potential, right? And in the future, as the network matures, Akash also is implementing a take rate model where up to 20% of the revenue hosting fees goes to the token holder. So it's very lucrative to hold the token, at least in the early days, right? So people find that attracted, and people, of course, a portion of your AKT is liquidated to pay the bills because you got to pay bills in US dollars, right, for your electricity. But the attractiveness of the token creates the demand for the token for our providers.
And I'm thinking in particular for these legacy businesses that aren't familiar with cryptocurrency, but they want to use, so they've got this spare capacity. They connect it to the Akash network and start providing it. That spare capacity wasn't earning them anything before.
Yep.
At least now it's earning them this cryptocurrency coin or a token.
It's a token.
Sorry?
Yeah. It's a token, Akash Network token.
Okay.
AKT.
I find it a bit difficult to get around about Cosmos, whether they're coins or tokens, right? They're part of that ecosystem. But anyway, so so they get this token, which for other reasons is appreciating in value. The way that it's designed, the staking, the liquidity pool mining. So the businesses may liquidate some of it in order to pay their bills. Maybe make a little profit on this, what wasn't earning anything for them before.
Right.
And they may stake it or add it to the Osmosis liquidity pool. If there's somebody there who's savvy enough to go ahead and do that, right?
Okay. Yeah, we show them around, and they love these tokens. Once they figure out, like, hey, once somebody stakes Akash and comes back the next day and sees there's actually a lot more tokens than you started off with, it's a very attractive thing for a lot of folks, especially in the traditional finance, because you're not used to 50% APRs. Yeah, so it could be 20% tops, right?
Yeah,
that's on a good performing day. So Yeah.
Not at all. Okay. All right. So that's the business end. Then what about for the users of the service? How do you get them? What do they get out of it? Okay, apart from lower costs, plus because it's decentralized, it is censorship resistant. Is that correct?
hmm Yeah. So from a demand side, we have essentially three, so multiple channels, lots of things we do to increase demand, right? That's our biggest focus more than increasing supply. And the reason, and we're seeing very strong growth, I would say product market fit in three core areas, right? Um, the biggest demand we are seeing right now is from arbitragers, and that's obvious, I suppose. A lot of the folks that are mining Monero, mining Pocket, essentially every time you see lower cost compute, you're going to have miners, and arbitragers just take advantage of it. And that's just the nature of a free market economy. Arbitrages are important because they add efficiency to market structures. They're annoying because they increase prices for everyone. Actually, when we started off, Akash, it was like 1/8 lower than Amazon, but it's now 1/3 thanks to Monero miners.
Wow.
So it's great. Like we're like it, mining is one of those amazingly efficient way of converting compute into dollars. If you think about it, right? So you have that cohort. They're whatever. It's not the most exciting thing. They just take advantage of low cost. And the second cohort is very interesting. I would call them the anti-deplatforming cohort. So there's deplatforming is a huge threat. Half the country feels threatened, and there's mounting evidence that deplatforming is now being weaponized by state actors against corporations or individuals that have variable like political agenda. So it's becoming a problem. And a lot of folks are looking at Akash as a alternative to your traditional cloud, right? So in case you get deplatformed, or in case, there's also reliability issues with the cloud. As you know, being in crypto, you see a ton of these exchanges going down, right? So Akash is used as a disaster recovery mechanism. And people are deploying amazing things in patterns that I'm very proud of. So Akash doesn't do storage; it only does compute, right? There are other networks like Filecoin, Saya, Arweave, that do storage. So since we don't do storage, but storage is essential, a lot of folks, what they do is they use Akash Network for hosting their databases and their application service, but store the data and back up the data to Skynet, and use Handshake for your DNS recovery. So now, discovery, right? So now you have effectively created a world where you completely skip the traditional internet. We're talking about DNS, cloud, as well as storage, and you have this alternative, decentralized alternative, which is very viable, which is amazing, is permissionless, right? So people are finding a lot of value in it. In fact, we're seeing higher level abstractions now being built, like WordPress. 33% of the entire internet runs on WordPress. Maybe, it's one of those things that's been around for so long. Now there's unstoppable WordPress that's being built by people that were original WordPress people, right? So there are all these amazing applications that are taking advantage of the censorship resistance property of Akash Network and building amazing stuff on it. And the third category, which is my favorite category, is the innovators, right? It's open systems. A lot of systems today that, even though they're open source, I don't want to get too technical into it, but things like Docker registries, we call them, that really didn't have an option to decentralize or open source that cloud, because cloud was traditionally closed. So a lot of these systems are being rebuilt to run on Akash, right? So you have the cutting edge systems like the Atom ecosystem, where you have the validators and the RPC nodes, and you have the relayer node, all that essentially running on Akash. And Akash is super simple to run most Cosmos infrastructure nodes. On top of that, you're making other core infrastructure products like registries and all that right now being built on Akash. Why this is important is, once you rebuild your traditional infrastructure to be more open, you're essentially creating the template for the future that a viable open systems is possible, and you don't have to all like build on the traditional cloud. And I think that's going to be the biggest sort of like paradigm shift for Akash and the rest of the world along with.
Okay. That's amazing, and I get with you about I get you about the censorship resistance and how important that is. And I imagine that in the run up to the US election, that you had an uptick in people using your service because of all the censorship that was going on in the deplatforming, which has continued ever since.
Yes.
It's the case that particularly around then,
So not around that. I think people are still discovering Akash. So we're every day we're gaining users in that deplatformable like cohort, right? Definitely something like Parler should prove that you can be taken down by someone like Amazon Web Services and Cloudflare and these services, right? So it's not about what Parler did, which is right or wrong. It's about these companies having so much power to silence people, American people, right? Or
Yeah.
people world over in general. And that's what's scary. It's not about, what side of the political realm you stand for. It's an institution that can silence a perfectly free, group of people. And that's what bothers me.
Yeah.
And the question is like, the problem is that whoever heads the institution has all the power, and I don't like that, right? I rather want the power to be with the people. So we built Akash Network to keep the power to the people, and now people are realizing it's a viable alternative, and we are seeing adoption. So I'm very proud of that activity.
Okay. And then for the demand side, how do they use the token? They use the token to pay for the service?
So they use the token to pay for the service, and